Ben was just 15 when he started drinking every single day. It helped him cope with his feelings and life in general. After all, being a teenager is angsty and emotional, which can be tough to deal with. Alcohol also made him feel alive. I felt like I had arrived when I drank alcohol, and it made me feel as though I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. It allowed me to come out in the world and be able to play with others. I could talk with women and not be afraid. It was a magic potion while it worked, he recalls. Alcohol provided the first spiritual experience he ever had. By the time he was 24, though, the magic potion effect began to wear off even though he was drinking a half-gallon per day. I was pretty much unemployable. I'd broken the hearts of everybody that ever loved me and was bouncing around from house to house until I burned my bridge there and then went to another house. He'd quit college, and doctors were warning that if he didn't get sober, he wouldn't live till his next birthday. That didn't change his habit. I just couldn't stop. It was a dark time, and his parents and an aunt staged an intervention. Ben had a decision to make. Go to treatment at Terra Treatment Center, where he had a bed waiting for him, or go homeless in January with no shelter, transportation, or phone. Begrudgingly, he chose Terra. He notes, I didn't want to go, but deep down I knew I was very sick and needed help. During detoxification at Terra, Ben was terrified. Although his family was religious, he wasn't relying on any version of God. I remember laying in the detoxification bed at Terra and I just prayed in a very honest way. I said, I'm gonna give this a nice shot, and if you're out there, I need your help. Interestingly, Ben didn't picture himself as an alcoholic. His conception of alcoholism was the guy with a brown bag that lives underneath a bridge that pushes the shopping cart and hasn't showered for a couple of months, which wasn't like Ben. His view of alcoholics and alcoholism made recovery difficult. He'd surrendered to the program, but not his life. He was thinking, I'm gonna take this program and Alcoholics Anonymous and get what I need to get better. Then I'm gonna go back to running the show and doing things the way I want to do. Little did Ben know, his version of running the show would lead to more trouble, even though he was sober for 2.5 years after his first treatment. His time at Terra really did change his life, however, and one of the best things he learned about was about Alcoholics Anonymous. During his time in treatment, it allowed him to connect with other young people who needed to be sober to a community he didn't know existed. After being involved at Terra for about 14 months, he moved into transitional living and began working at Anne's restaurant. Things were going great and he felt like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. He had a great support network behind him and a sponsor, although they didn't connect much. But then I got a job. Who could know that such usually joyful words, especially a good job in the field he was studying in college, could turn bad. The new job carried him away from his recovery support network. When he cut his hand badly enough to need surgery, those people weren't around to help him with the opioid painkillers doctors prescribed. After surgery, he tried to tell doctors he didn't want any pain medication. He says, I knew that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, but when he resisted the pain medication, they just kind of laughed at me and were like, okay, whatever. The pain got so bad that Ben had to get the pain meds filled. It was okay for a short time because he had help monitoring the medication. I was taking it as prescribed, but then I snuck the bottle out of the trash when I was done with that first round and went to fill it again in secret, he shared. The cycle began again, this time with prescription pain medication. Stealing fed the addiction for quite some time. He recalls, I really quickly went from not wanting any painkillers at all to snorting OxyContin off the back of a toilet in a gas station bathroom because I had to have it right away. It was really bad. Ben's addiction cycle came full circle, but it wasn't alcohol this time. He resisted treatment and continued to relapse for 6 months even though, he says, I knew that I had to be done with this. A perpetual thought of addiction. I know I shouldn't do this and I don't want to, but I can't stop. Ultimately, he didn't go back to treatment, but he was terrified. His addiction had taken over again, so he thought, I need to double up on whatever I didn't do last time and really try to get this thing. He went back to AA, got a serious sponsor, and went to regular meetings. Having a dedicated sponsor to talk to outside of AA meetings helped a lot. I was meeting with him regularly, every Tuesday night for sometimes 3, 4, or 5 hours at a time. He was very willing to share with me what he had been so freely given. Ben eventually became a secretary of his Friday meetings and began truly working the 12 steps for the first time. He was in his early 30s at the time and says, through working the steps, I came to know a power greater than myself for the first time, as an adult, that wasn't a conception that came from my parents. When Ben had this spiritual awakening, he explains, I felt at peace for the first time, like I'd never felt before. I felt like I was starting to begin to live life. This peace held for 5 years before addiction struck again. Ben had started a business as a professional golf instructor for children in Indianapolis that was quickly taking off. He'd found a church to attend every Sunday. Things looked great on the outside. But a growing business meant less time for meetings and connecting with his recovery support network. He stopped meeting with his sponsor every week and didn't have time to maintain his service position in his AA group. He began to rationalize, "I'm going to church, and AA led me to church. Sunday is my day off. This is all I need right now." After about 2 years of being away from his sponsor and support network, opportunities arose to smoke marijuana. Ben thought it would be okay because it was just weed, and who has a problem with weed? Growing up in an environment where smoking weed was accepted and used regularly by people who, Ben says, didn't have problems in their life like I had problems, he figured it would be okay. He was still running his business and going to church. The problem came when a long-lost family member gave him some methamphetamine, meth, to try. Although meth wasn't really Ben's thing when he was younger, he tried it. "I used it for about a month, just on the weekends, thinking I was gonna control it. The great obsession of every drinker and user is that you can just use this normally and you can control it." Before long, the old addiction patterns re-emerged. He was scared, so he tried to help himself before addiction took over again. He told some family members, "I've had a relapse. It's just a recreational thing right now, but I just want you to know, because I don't want to go back to the way it was." He went back to therapy and began trying to call his sponsor and go back to meetings. But this time was different. He recalls, "I felt like I had unleashed this beast inside of me. I'd never felt anything like it. I knew, in the back of my mind, even with all these supports that I was trying to drag up, I was going to go full bore into this thing." He had no idea what was next. One night, after his realization that he was going to be fully consumed by addiction again, he got in his car around midnight and went to get meth. He says, "There were tears flowing down my face because he knew his life was about to be turned upside down." Addiction controlled his life once again, but this time, it affected his 17-year-old daughter. "I fully got into the meth world at that point," Ben explains. "There was no turning back." He didn't want to continue paying retail prices for his habit, so he made the decision to start selling it to people. He had money from his successful business and says, "It just made sense to me that way." Within a month he was turning a profit. It was the darkest time of his life, taking him to places he never thought he was capable of going and interacting with people he didn't know he was capable of being around. "I was in the lowest place in my life. It took me into counterfeiting money and dealing with stolen goods to being around people I had no business being around and doing things with people and to people that were unspeakable." It was time for another intervention. He was arrested for dealing in methamphetamines, possession of heroin, resisting law enforcement, possession of marijuana, and possession of counterfeit money. His daughter had called the police because of his irrational and paranoid behavior. It scared her, and she had to act for her protection and his. "My mind was so far out in the grips of reality, but it seemed so real to me," Ben recalls. He couldn't understand why the hallucinations or time spent peeking out of the curtains into the backyard because he thought someone was watching him were alarming. One time he even thought, "I'm gonna go over to my neighbor's house and hide in the bushes and watch my house from a distance to see if I can see anything from that perspective." After the investigation and his subsequent arrest, everything came tumbling down. Because of his respected position in the community, especially working with children, he was plastered all over the news. He let a lot of people down and broke trust in every area of his life. "I'd never been to jail before. I'm somebody with a golf background and I grew up at the country club. I was completely out of my element," Ben says. Jail was a new low for him. Although he's thankful for that time now, he wasn't at the time. Despite his arrest, Ben doesn't see himself as a criminal and never has. He explains, "I don't view myself as a criminal. My addiction makes me do criminal behaviors. When I'm not using, I'm not a criminal. It's something that came out of my addiction. You do what you need to do to feed your addiction." This time, addiction had landed him hot water. He was facing up to 30 years in prison and was scared to death. A little more than a week after he was sent to jail, Ben cried out for help. "My sponsor and my dad have always talked about how nature brings us closer to God or higher power, and I always felt that way about nature. The only thing I had when I was in that jail was looking out the window at the tree that was out there." Two cried out for help once again. One part of him wanted to get out, but the other part knew he needed to get treatment again. He was alone, his family wasn't speaking to him, he had a high bail and no idea of what was to come. Then an attorney appeared and gave Ben a glimmer of hope. Ben made a decision and told his attorney, "I want to get directly into treatment," and after 30 days of being in jail, he got a hearing. Judge Kelly Benjamin was presiding over the case, but Judge Steve Hyman sat on the bench for the hearing that day. Ben knew him from church. They already had a bed set up at Terra, but Ben was expecting the worst. He describes the scene, "I had tears flowing down my face. Judge Hyman did what I didn't think he was going to do. He said, "We're gonna let you out, let you get into treatment and get the help you need." That day, he left jail and came to Tara for the second time. Despite the 15-year gap since he'd last been, it was still the same recipe for getting people back on their feet, getting them stabilized, starting to work with therapists and counselors, and having a blanket of love and support. "I knew I was where I needed to be," recalls Ben. After he completed treatment, he went to Progress House in Indianapolis. "I was able to find a brotherhood there like I had never experienced before. People from all walks of life going through the exact same things I was going through. I found a sponsor up there and some accountability partners that I'm still in touch with today. They're like brothers to me." Progress House agreed with Ben, and he started working there as an intake coordinator at the front desk. His life was improving, although his hearing with Judge Benjamin was still looming. He says, "For the first time in my life, I was desperate enough to become willing enough to do absolutely everything that was asked of me." After 18 months he'd become the resident manager of Progress House, supervising everything that happened on second shift. On the day of his hearing, Ben feared the worst, but did the one thing he knew he could do. Pray. He explains, "I went into the bathroom before I went into the courtroom and I got down on my knees and I said, 'Thy will be done.' My will never really got me anywhere, so I'm willing to accept whatever happens." When all was said and done, Ben got 8 years at the Department of Corrections. 3 years were suspended, he had to do a year of work release in Bartholomew County, and the rest was served on probation. In one of the biggest shocks of his life, Ben says, "I was spared prison." He was to report to a man named Nathan Walsh at the ASAP hub in Bartholomew County. Judge Benjamin said, "Go see this guy. You're going to do some community service there. You've obviously learned how to help others. You're doing well with that, and so we would like to keep you connected with that type of work," he recalls. ASAP Hub is a recovery resource center in Bartholomew County. It's a city and county funded organization that started in 2017 in a response to the opioid crisis. Although it was meant to be temporary, it has since become permanent and Ben is still an important fixture there. Working at ASAP Hub made Ben feel normal during his time on work release. He enjoyed it so much that when he was laid off from another job during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, he began volunteering there full-time. He helped to set up the first recovery house in the area and now works at ASAP Hub as the recovery housing operations manager. He explains, "I operate our first men's home. Next week we're opening our second men's home, and in about 60 days, we're going to open up a women's home. All three have the same program model." Since Ben has experience in managing recovery houses, he was a natural choice to lead the project for ASAP Hub, which continues to add more housing options and has big plans in the future. Such an amazing transformation is so incredible that it almost seems too good to be true. Ben himself says, "I can't believe it sometimes, how good his life is and how much he's changed." To this day, he still has the card Judge Benjamin handed him that day in court. In fact, he says, "I still carry that card in my wallet." It's truly a reminder of the opportunity he was given to continue to serve others and create a sober life he loves, a life he would never have without this act of good faith. "This is not the life I chose for myself. And that's how I know it's good. If it was what I chose for myself, who knows where I'd be."